There is a pattern so consistent, so predictable, so thoroughly documented across 5 centuries of political and social observation that Machiavelli dedicated an entire section of his most important work to warning against it. And yet almost no one sees it coming. You help someone, genuinely, significantly, at real cost to yourself, your time, your money, your connections, your reputation, your energy. You give them something they needed when they needed it, and they receive it. They are grateful. The gratitude feels real because it is real, in that moment. And then, weeks, months, sometimes years later, the same person becomes a problem. They distance themselves. They undermine you quietly. They take a position against your interest without apparent cause. In the most acute cases, they actively work against you. And you are left standing in the wreckage of something you built with your own generosity, wondering what you did wrong. You did not do anything wrong. You did something predictable, and you did not know the prediction. Machiavelli knew it. He called it the ingratitude of the favored. He documented it in princes and servants, in patrons and clients, in republics and their benefactors. And he built a precise framework for understanding why it happens. Not as a moral failing of individual bad people, but as a structural feature of how human beings process obligation, power, and the debt that generosity creates. Today we go through that framework completely. Why betrayal follows help with such regularity that Machiavelli treated it as a law rather than an exception. What the debt trap is and how it works mechanically. Who is most at risk of falling into it. And most importantly, how to help people build alliances and generate genuine loyalty without triggering the mechanism that turns your generosity into your vulnerability. This is not a lesson about becoming cynical. It is a lesson about becoming accurate. Part 1, the mechanics of the debt trap. To understand why people betray those who help them, you need to understand what happens psychologically when someone receives significant help. The moment you help someone, genuinely, meaningfully, at real cost to yourself, you create an asymmetry. They have received, you have given. The ledger between you is unbalanced. For most people, an unbalanced ledger is uncomfortable. Not because they are ungrateful, because the imbalance represents a debt, an obligation that sits in the relationship like a weight. And debts are psychologically burdensome in ways that have nothing to do with whether the debtor is a good or bad person. The debt reminds them of their need, of the moment they were not sufficient on their own, of the fact that where they are now required someone else's help to reach. And for many people, especially people with any degree of pride, ambition, or self-regard, that reminder is quietly, persistently uncomfortable. Machiavelli observes this with clinical precision. He writes that men forget more easily the death of a father than the loss of a patrimony. He extends this principle to benefactors. Those who have given significantly to someone create, in that person, not gratitude, but a form of debt shame. The more significant the gift, the heavier the debt. The heavier the debt, the more uncomfortable the person carrying it. And the more uncomfortable a person is, the more they are motivated to find a way to eliminate the source of the discomfort. Here is the mechanism stated plainly. The person who owes you cannot fully repay you. The debt is too large, or the opportunity to repay has not arrived, or their current circumstances do not allow for it. The debt sits. It accumulates interest in the form of daily reminder. Every time they see you, interact with you, think of you, the debt is present. You, the benefactor, have become the physical representation of their insufficiency. And the human mind, faced with a debt it cannot pay, eventually begins to look for a different way to close the ledger. Not through repayment, through revaluation. If the gift was not actually as valuable as it seemed, the debt is smaller. If the giver had selfish motives, the debt is canceled. If the giver is actually not as good as originally believed, there is no debt at all. The person who owed you has not become a bad person. They have become a person whose psychological need to eliminate an unpayable debt has activated a very human process of retroactive revaluation. They begin to find flaws in you, in your motives, in the gift itself, in the memory of how it was given. Not consciously in most cases. The process runs below the level of awareness, producing its conclusions as feelings. Feelings of irritation, of subtle resentment, of a desire for distance, that the person does not fully understand but acts on nonetheless. And from your position, you receive distance, you receive undermining, you receive betrayal, without ever seeing the mechanism that produced it. This is the debt trap, and Machiavelli's framework tells us exactly how to avoid building it. Part 2. The historical evidence. Machiavelli did not theorize this from an armchair. He watched it happen in real time, repeatedly, at the highest levels of power. The pattern appears throughout history with such regularity that dismissing it as coincidence requires more faith than accepting it as mechanism. Caesar's assassins were men he had shown mercy to. Brutus was his protege. Cassius had been pardoned by Caesar personally after fighting against him at Pharsalus. The men who killed Caesar on the Ides of March were almost uniformly men who owed him something significant: their lives, their careers, their positions. Machiavelli analyzes this not as treachery, but as structure. He notes that Caesar's policy of clemency, his practice of sparing and elevating those who opposed him, created exactly the conditions the debt trap requires. Men who owed everything to Caesar and could not repay that debt were men who needed, psychologically, to eliminate the weight of it. The assassination was not ingratitude, it was debt resolution by the only mechanism available to people who could not repay what they owed. The same pattern appears in the relationship between Florence and its most generous benefactors. Cosimo de' Medici's enemies were largely men his family had funded. The Pazzi conspiracy, the assassination attempt against Lorenzo de' Medici, was financed by the Pazzi family, who owed their banking position in significant part to Medici patronage. And in Machiavelli's own life, the men who had him arrested, tortured, and exiled from Florence in 1512 included several to whom he had given years of loyal service and genuine assistance. He was not bitter about this in the way a naive person would be bitter. He was analytical. He understood what had happened. And he wrote the framework for understanding it so that those who came after him would not be surprised by it. The lesson he draws from all of this is not do not help people. The lesson is help people in ways that do not create the specific psychological conditions that trigger betrayal. And that requires understanding exactly what those conditions are. Part 3, the 5 conditions that trigger the trap. The debt trap does not activate in every case of help given. There are specific conditions that make it likely and specific conditions that make it unlikely. Here are the 5 conditions that trigger it. Condition 1. The help was given from a position of visible superiority. When you help someone from a position that is visibly above theirs, financially, socially, professionally, the help carries an implicit message that neither of you intends. The implicit message is, I have what you need and you do not. The recipient hears this message not as a conscious statement, but as a felt experience. The felt experience is one of comparative diminishment. They were helped from above. The help, however generously given, has a vertical dimension to it that the relationship now carries. Every subsequent interaction between you and this person occurs within that vertical frame. You are the one who was above. They are the one who was below and needed help. That frame is uncomfortable, and the most available way to collapse a vertical frame is to undermine the person at the top of it. Not consciously, through the gradual accumulation of small revaluations that build toward a conclusion that levels the playing field in the person's own mind. Machiavelli notes that this is why princes who practice ostentatious generosity create enemies more reliably than princes who create conditions for people to help themselves. The visible gift from the visible superior creates the vertical frame. The created condition, the opportunity that allows the person to achieve something themselves, does not. Condition 2. The recipient has no means or opportunity to reciprocate. The debt trap is activated most powerfully when the debt genuinely cannot be repaid. If someone can repay you, if the opportunity exists, if they have the means, if the relationship structure allows for genuine reciprocity, the debt is not an existential weight. It is a pending transaction. The discomfort is temporary because the resolution is possible. The trap springs on the people who receive something they cannot return. The mentor who gave years of guidance to someone who is now in a completely different field. The person who gave financial help to someone who is now financially well-positioned, but the moment of potential repayment has long passed. The person who gave access to their network to someone who has now built their own and no longer needs the original introduction. In all of these cases, the debt is structurally unreturnable. The currency has changed, the moment has passed. The ledger cannot be balanced through normal means, and the unresolvable debt becomes a permanent, uncomfortable presence in the relationship until the mechanism of revaluation begins to run. Condition 3. The help required the recipient to show weakness. When receiving your help required the other person to reveal a vulnerability, a financial problem, a professional failure, a personal crisis, an area of genuine inadequacy, the gift and the weakness are permanently associated in their memory. You saw them at their worst. You know something about them that they would prefer did not exist. Not because you would use it against them, but because your continued presence is a continued reminder that you have seen what they would rather be unseen. The gift was given at the exact moment of maximum vulnerability, which means the gift and the vulnerability live in the same psychological space. Distancing from you is distancing from the memory of the weakness. Machiavelli does not phrase it this way explicitly, but the principle runs throughout his analysis of why powerful men often turn against those who witness their moments of dependence. The witness of weakness is a specific kind of threat, not active, but existential. They know what happened. As long as they are present, the knowledge is present. Condition 4. The recipient has significantly risen since the help was given. This is the condition that produces the most acute form of betrayal and the most bewildering from the perspective of the person who helped. You helped someone when they were low. They rose. They are now successful, confident, established, and they turn on you, or quietly erase your contribution to their rise, or position themselves against your interests. The mechanism here is specific and brutal. Their current status and their memory of needing help exist in direct contradiction. A person who needed significant help to get where they are cannot hold simultaneously the narrative of self-made achievement and the accurate memory of the debt. So one of them has to yield. The narrative of self-made achievement is much more comfortable. It is the story they tell at events to their children in their own private mythology. The accurate memory of the debt must shrink, must be minimized, must be reframed. The help was not that significant, it was circumstantial, it was not really what made the difference. The person who gave it had their own reasons. And you, the person whose help they are minimizing, become a threat to the narrative they need to maintain. Your existence, your memory of what you gave and when and at what cost, is evidence against the story they have told themselves about who they are. Eliminating the threat to the narrative means eliminating, or at least marginalizing, you. Condition 5. The help created dependency rather than capability. When the help you gave solves someone's problem without building their capacity to solve it themselves, you have created a dependency. And dependency over time becomes resentment. The person who cannot solve their own problems without you has a specific relationship to you. They need you. And need, when it is chronic and unresolvable, produces the same psychological response as unpayable debt. The child who was never taught to do things for themselves resents the parent who did everything for them. The employee whose boss always solves their problems resents the boss who never let them develop. The friend who always calls you for rescue resents you, quietly, unknowingly, for being the person they need to call. Machiavelli writes about the prince who creates dependency in his subjects as creating a structural weakness in his state. The subjects cannot function without him, and the inability to function independently over time produces a desire to remove the source of the dependency rather than maintain it. Because the dependency is humiliating, and the person who created it, however generously, is the author of the humiliation. Part 4. How to help without building the trap. None of this means stop helping people. It means help differently, with the precision of someone who understands the mechanism they are working with. Here is the Machiavellian framework for generosity that builds loyalty rather than triggering betrayal. First, help builds capability, not solves problems. The most durable form of help is the help that makes the recipient more capable rather than less burdened. When you solve someone's problem for them, you remove the discomfort while leaving the incapability intact. They feel relief, but they remain unable to solve the problem independently. The dependency is created. When you help someone develop the capability to solve their own problem, the outcome is different. They solve their problem, you help them develop the capability to do so. But the solving was theirs. The psychological experience of this is completely different. They do not owe you a solution. They owe you, or more accurately, they are grateful for, the development of their own capability. And that gratitude does not carry the weight of debt because what they have now, the capability, is fully theirs. It cannot be taken back. It does not require continued dependence on you. The mentor who teaches creates a fundamentally different relationship than the benefactor who gives. Second, help is given in ways that preserve the recipient's dignity. Wherever possible, the help you give should be structured so that the recipient's dignity is preserved, ideally so that the receipt of the help is not experienced as receipt of help at all. This sounds like concealment. It is actually craft. You create the opportunity rather than giving the gift. You introduce the connection without framing it as an introduction. You remove the obstacle without drawing attention to the obstacle that was there. You position things so that what the person achieves, they achieve, and your contribution is present but not prominent. The less visible your role in their success, the lighter the debt they carry. The lighter the debt, the less the trap can spring. Machiavelli describes this as the art of the prince who appears to allow his people to prosper through their own virtue rather than appearing to grant their prosperity through his. The reality may be identical. The experienced reality is completely different, and it is the experienced reality that determines the psychological dynamics of the relationship. Third, build reciprocity early and keep it alive. The debt trap springs on unidirectional relationships, on relationships where one person gives and the other receives and the ledger never balances. The most powerful prevention is the structural creation of genuine reciprocity from the beginning. Find what the other person has that you genuinely need or value. Let them give it to you. Receive it openly. Acknowledge it genuinely. You are doing two things simultaneously. You are receiving something real, which serves you directly, and you are giving the other person the experience of being a giver rather than only a receiver, which changes the psychological architecture of the relationship fundamentally. A relationship where both parties give and receive is not a relationship with a debt trap. It is a relationship of mutual exchange. The ledger is never massively unbalanced because both sides are regularly making deposits and withdrawals. Machiavelli writes about the importance of the prince accepting the gifts of his subjects, not because he needs them, but because acceptance of a gift creates a bond of mutual exchange that pure giving never does. The prince who only gives creates creditors. The prince who also receives creates partners. Fourth, never give more than can realistically be returned. When the scale of your help is so large that realistic reciprocity becomes impossible, you have set the stage for the trap. This does not mean be stingy. It means be proportional. And when the situation genuinely requires help at a scale that cannot be reciprocated in kind, structure the help in a way that does not create a direct personal debt. Give in ways that do not create a specific ledger between you and the recipient. Give to a community rather than to an individual. Give through a structure, an institution, a fund, a program, rather than hand to hand. Give anonymously where the situation allows. Or give to people who have the means and the position to reciprocate, even if the reciprocation will take time. Give with patience, with a long timeline, with the understanding that the relationship of exchange will unfold over years rather than weeks. The gift that cannot be repaid is the gift that creates the most dangerous debt. Scale accordingly. Fifth, maintain your own independent strength. The debt trap is also activated when the person who gave help appears to need something from the recipient. When the benefactor's well-being, status, or security appears to depend on the recipient's gratitude and loyalty, The recipient feels the weight of that dependence as an additional obligation. And when the sum of obligations is too great, the mechanism of relief through revaluation becomes more likely. Machiavelli is explicit that the prince who depends on the gratitude of those he has benefited is building on sand. Because gratitude, even genuine gratitude, is not a stable foundation for lasting loyalty. It requires the grateful person to maintain the feeling indefinitely, and feelings, unlike interests, are not reliably durable. The benefactor who maintains their own independent strength, who clearly does not need the recipient's loyalty to remain secure, whose position does not depend on the relationship, creates a different dynamic entirely. They gave from strength rather than from need. The giving was not an investment expecting return. It was an action by someone sufficiently secure to give without accounting. And that quality, the giving from genuine sufficiency, is the only kind of giving that does not eventually activate the trap. Because the trap requires a ledger, and you can only build a ledger with someone who is keeping one. Give from a place that does not keep one. Part 5. What to do when the trap has already sprung. You are reading this having already lived some version of this story. Someone you helped has turned on you, is distancing from you, is undermining you, is positioning themselves against your interests in ways you did not see coming. What do you do? First, do not confuse the mechanism with the person. The mechanism is not the person. They are not a bad person who revealed their true nature. They are a person in whom a predictable psychological mechanism has activated. Understanding the mechanism does not obligate you to excuse the behavior, but it frees you from the most damaging response, which is the personal devastation of someone who believed in a person and feels their belief was wrong. The belief was not wrong. The model was incomplete. Second, stop adding to the ledger. Any additional help you give to someone in whom the trap has already activated is fuel for the mechanism, not resolution for it. You are not going to give your way back into their loyalty. Every additional gift increases the debt they need to revalue away. Stop. Third, create distance without drama. You do not need to confront. You do not need to explain. You do not need the satisfaction of their acknowledgement of what you gave. Quietly reduce your investment in the relationship. Reduce availability. Redirect energy. Let the relationship find its natural level without your continued generosity, propping it at an artificial height. Fourth, extract the learning without the bitterness. Every betrayal of this kind is a precise lesson in the specific conditions that triggered it. Which of the 5 conditions were present? What you could have structured differently? What signals appeared early that you did not read? Extract the lesson. Carry the lesson forward. Leave the bitterness behind. Because bitterness about human nature is the most expensive response to a predictable pattern. It costs you the openness that future genuine relationships require. It makes you less capable of the generosity that, given correctly, builds the alliances that last. Machiavelli was betrayed, repeatedly, at great personal cost. He lost his career, his freedom briefly, his position in the city he loved, and he wrote the most clear-eyed, useful, durable analysis of human political nature in the history of Western thought. He did not become bitter, he became accurate. That is the model. The Machiavellian debt trap is not a reason to stop helping people. It is a reason to help with precision, to give in ways that build capability rather than dependency, to structure relationships so that reciprocity is possible and practiced, to maintain your own strength so that your giving comes from sufficiency rather than need, to scale your help proportionally to the realistic capacity for return, and to hold clearly and without illusion the understanding that gratitude, even real gratitude, is not the same thing as loyalty. That the feeling a person has in the moment of receiving does not predict their behavior in the months and years after. That the mechanism Machiavelli identified is structural and not personal, and that it will operate on good people and bad people with equal indifference. You are not protected from it by choosing the right people to help. You are protected from it by structuring your help correctly. Do that, and the people worth having, the ones who have been built by your help into genuinely capable, genuinely self-sufficient people who give as readily as they receive, those people will still be there. Not because they owe you, because the relationship between you never built the ledger that the trap requires. That is the goal. Build relationships without ledgers, give without keeping score, and structure your giving so that the people you help never have to carry a debt they cannot pay. Because a debt they cannot pay is a problem they will eventually solve at your expense. The next video in this series covers how to identify in the first 3 interactions whether someone is building a relationship of genuine exchange or positioning themselves to take without returning. The early signals are specific, consistent, and almost always present from the beginning. Share this with someone who needs it. I will see you in the next one.